Hey y'all, it's Sierra, and I'm going to read you a bedtime story, so get snuggled in and get ready because it's going to be good. It's about King David, and you remember him. He's the man who slayed the giant, who slayed Goliath with just a slingshot and a stone. So he's super cool. So you know this story is going to be super cool. So Psalm 23 is what we're going to talk about. And David was a king, but he also was a musician. So he liked to play music, he liked to write songs, he likes to write poems, and so that's where this psalm came from. And so in this psalm, David refers to God as the shepherd king. He refers to God as the shepherd king. Keep in mind, David was a king, but he also used to be a shepherd. So he remembered how he cared and led his sheep. At first thought, a king and a shepherd are very different. When I think about a king, I think about a royal crown, a large castle, servants, fancy food, and a beautiful queen. On the other hand, when I think about a shepherd, I think about a servant, somebody who works in the field, and somebody who is in raggedy clothes. But there is something that a shepherd and a king have in common. They both have an important job. They both are supposed to look after something important. A king is supposed to look over, protect, and watch after its kingdom and the people under him, while a shepherd is supposed to look after, protect, and look after his sheep. While a king may have nicer things than a shepherd, they still have an important job. David might compare God to a shepherd because sometimes when we think of kings, we think of someone who's snobby, someone who thinks that they're better than us, or someone who couldn't possibly know all the people in the kingdom. But when you think of a shepherd, you think of somebody who knows and loves each of his sheep. And you could talk to a shepherd because you wouldn't be nervous and you could just be yourself around a shepherd. So David knows that God isn't like the kings of earth today. So he compares God to a loving shepherd who takes care of his people, so we can get a better picture of what God's like. So throughout the chapter, even though David is talking about himself as a sheep, I think it's meant for us to read and see ourselves as a sheep and God as our shepherd. After thinking about a shepherd, I thought about the sheep and how they completely rely on the shepherd for food, shelter, and safety, just like we need to rely on God. You may think that your parents provide all this for you, but the truth is your parents rely on God, and so God provides them a job and money and blessings so that they can give you what you need. Another important point is that sheep don't know as much as the shepherds. If you really think about it, sheep are pretty dumb in comparison to shepherds. So compared to God, we don't know much either. God knows our future. He made us and he made the whole world. The first part of the psalm, David talks about God being his shepherd and he is a sheep. A shepherd makes sure his sheep has everything he needs, like nice green grass and clean water. God gives him peace and rest because we can trust him. God keeps him on a good path. Even when there are rough times, he doesn't have to be afraid. God is always with him, and he can make him feel better whenever he needs to. Then David talks about the banquet that God the king would prepare. There were lots of important fancy banquets for kings, and since David was a king, he was thinking of how God would treat him. I don't think David was still referring to himself as a sheep. God would prepare a banquet for David and protect him from his enemies. He would treat David like a royal guest and honor him. In those days, people would get anointed to become king, or if they recognized it being someone special. David was trying to say that even though he was king, God would recognize him as king, but as something even more special. David ends by saying that he would continuously be blessed by God with lots of goodness and love, and that he is looking forward to living with God forever. God is our shepherd king. He's guiding us, he's protecting us, and he loves us. We don't know as much as God, and that's why we have to rely on him. So just keep that in mind, that God knows everything. He's here for us. He's able to protect us, to guide us, to keep us. So we just have to We just have to rely on him to guide us and to teach us, and he will. I love y'all so much. I miss y'all. Good night. Sleep